Hi everybody, and happy Blue Water Task Force Tuesday! It's Stina Troyer here, the Science Specialist for Harbor Wildwatch and Chair for the South Sound Surfrider Foundation. And I am tuning in to celebrate our last, our last sampling date of this series. Blue Water Task Force is something that happens September through May, and this is where volunteers go out to collect monthly water samples to be analyzed for fecal coliform to know whether it's, safe to play in the water or not. This is something that volunteers do as a way to kind of keep up with some sort of sampling semblance to make sure these places we play are safe while the beach program is on pause. That's a group that does water quality testing in the summer months where it's more, I guess we'll say, normal for people to play in the water. But we know that folks like to play in the Puget Sound year-round, whether they're paddleboarding or scuba diving, kayaking, polar plunging, however you like to play in the water. Maybe you can let us know what you do to enjoy the Puget Sound in the comments here. But this team of volunteers goes out every month to collect a water sample at various places. And I'm tuning in a little bit early today because I'm at the Fox Island Sand Spit. And I don't normally get to come out here because we usually have the lovely Jason is our key person on this site, but they're out for the week. So I figured, hey, I'm gonna switch things up a little bit and look at these epic clouds in the background. It's just a beautiful day here to be enjoying our last little sampling, and our volunteers get to take the summer off, and we'll be back at it again in September. So cheers to everybody who's out there collecting their samples. We just got our water sample from here. It's on ice in our little cooler, so I'm gonna zip that up while we go do a little beach walk, because that's a fun addition that we get to add to our sampling, because we're out here collecting samples, we might as well enjoy the beach a little bit. So I've already walked down here, and one of the things I noticed was a very sad looking red rock crab. You can see that it is not alive anymore. I'm glad to have Mary and David tuning in. Hi folks. You can definitely let me know what you like to do while playing in the Puget Sound. Maybe you like watching our live videos, that's cool too. But yeah, this is a red rock crab. I would normally tell you can tell by the black tips on its pinchers, but as you can see, this crab has no pinchers, which could be part of our mystery of why it's no longer alive if they can't eat food. That is tricky. Those pinchers, while mostly protective, also help break down tiny bits of food so that it will fit in these delicate mouth parts. Normally, if the crab's alive, it won't let you touch this part, but there's many different layers of food processing pieces that go with the crab. You can see its little sensory antennas here, as well as the eyeballs. Seeing the eyeballs lets me know that this is definitely a dead crab, because if it was a molt, this would be just an empty shell, which it is not. There's definitely some heft to this thing. It also smells kind of bad now that I'm sitting here, but yes, this nice brick red color is going to be my other clue, since I don't have the pinchers to help me identify this crab. So a classic cancer crab carapace, and hopefully this gets to be somebody's lunch later. So that's kind of a fun find in what is a rare but lovely site. Who's been at a sandy beach in the South Puget Sound lately? There's not a lot of them. It's really a lot more of this rocky cobble that we get to see. But before I go over and look at the rocks, check this out. We have some evidence of animals. I wonder if anybody wants to guess in the comments who they think might be a little beach visitor here. You can see these paw prints going up the beach. They look different than a dog paw print to me. a little more, ooh, I like that one. I almost want it to be an opossum, but my guess, yeah, Rachel, the wee little toes. I'm like, this looks like a human footprint. I'm like, did somebody just transform into a raccoon? Yeah, Mary, I agree with you that I think these are raccoon paw prints, but we have an anamorph moment here maybe where some little kid just turned raccoon. Just kidding. There's a lot of different footprints on the beach, so maybe we can't exactly attribute that. But nice to see that maybe a little kiddo was out here stepping around in their bare feet, enjoying this sandy habitat, which again isn't super common in the South Sound. We're definitely more of a gravelly, cobbly kind of beach like this, which I don't know about you, but I have very weak feet and do not really enjoy barefoot walking on this kind of substrate. So going for the nice sand here. Again, we're at Demolay, the Fox Island Sandspit, Bella Bella Beach, whatever you want to call it. It's a beach with many names. I like to call it the place where the sandworms sing. So I guess you'll just have to come on a Harbor Wild Watch beach walk to learn a little bit more about that. Ooh, Rachel thinks it's an otter. That could definitely be an option. I'm gonna need to look at a footprint guide to make a better guess. But yeah, whether it's an otter, a raccoon, or an anamorphing child, it's hard to know without the animal. But thanks to guides, we can observe those footprints and make some matches. I don't know if you can see it on the phone, but there's these little fish zipping around as I get close to the near shore. I'm gonna come back for that seaweed later, but okay. There's some fish, that's cool. But this seaweed, this is Porphyra, also known as laver. It's a red algae, even though it looks brown. So that's lovely and confusing. It kind of has a elastic texture, so that's a good identifying characteristic of red algae when they have more of a like boing to them. There's a very similar type of algae, the green sea lettuce, and that has this nice leafy appearance, but is indeed a nice green color. And that green algae, if I were to try and kind of stretch it, doesn't have that same elastic feel, which perfectly it's floating by. So we can take a look at the green algae compared to our red algae that looks brown. Oh no, kicking up the sand here. All right, so our red and green leafy algae, very fun. Ooh, Monica has a great comment. What are we looking forward to on the beach this season? I will have to say the thing I'm most looking forward to is doing fully public programs again. I have absolutely missed coming to the beach with people. It's been kind of lonely out here with just our phone and the beach, and while it's fun to explore and share it in this digital format, I'm so excited to be like, hey, look at this dead piece of seaweed, the ghost algae, and put it in your hand, make you smell it. I promise I won't make you taste it, but it'll be salty, I'll promise that. But yeah, I definitely look forward to all our public programs that are going to be happening this year. And so hopefully, for those of you tuning in, you can take this digital walk and make it a live beach walk. Because there's so much fun stuff to observe and see. And while I'm so thankful for our digital platform to be able to stream you into the beach, there's something about feeling the cold water, smelling kind of the salty, briny air, listening to the birds and getting to turn your head and be like, what is that crow pecking at? There's not actually a crow, but I wish there was. I hear something peeping around. Also see some people coming by. Might talk to them soon. So yeah, great question, Monica. Looking forward to seeing you. Come on out. I did want to mention a little bit more. I am guessing that this is a piece of fairly dead green algae, just based on these tiny remnants of green holding on here. But this is something that we do, or the Surfrider Foundation does beach cleanups. And this is kind of a funny cleanup item we'll get, because you can really see how much this algae resembles plastic. And so every once in a while, you'll get a group with a bucket full of seaweed, which of course is totally fine to be on the beach. And also super understandable why you might pick it up, thinking that it's trash. But really, this kind of decaying algae will be food for detritivores, things that like to eat dying stuff out of the sand. Okay, there's our crow that we saw earlier. I knew something was around. But yeah, I think a fun thing to do is watch the birds, because every once in a while they're really good at finding cool stuff. And so if you take a look at what the birds are looking at, you never know what you might find. But I think it's getting scared by the people. Whee! Okay, sorry for that. Pan over. Hopefully that didn't make you seasick. All right. For those of you tuning in, if you want to let me know where you're watching from, we'll do a little peek around in this sandy habitat. But there is this beautiful point here. So the sand spit is this naturally occurring projection of sand that is surprisingly steep on the end. You can kind of see the slope of that beach in the distance. It makes for a quick walk to the shoreline. And then of course all this habitat on top of the spit is great for nesting birds. And then if we take a walk up and over, we'll see the other side. Hopefully the wind's not too bad. But you can see we have more of that cobbly beach, and then this beautiful habitat with lots of logs and some vegetation. Probably, I don't actually know what kind of plant this is. That's a good wonder to add to my world. But I would imagine it's something fairly salt resistant, being that the tide can come up fairly high here. Glad that Nathalie's tuning in from Tacoma. Glad to take you to the beach on a Tuesday. I love the high intertidal zone because there's often evidence of what you'll see at the beach. And so I'm seeing lots of shell debris in this kind of upper area. I noticed right here we have an oyster shell, kind of based on that ripply pattern and what looks like an area of the shell that was once adhered to a rock. Kind of that flat spot lets me know, like, okay, whatever shell building animal this was, it was stuck onto something, and that's a classic oyster move. And again, that purple color gives me the oyster vibes. Sorry if I keep unfocusing here. I'm also seeing some mussel shells. So this nice blue shell, sometimes with, that pearly inside. That's a classic mussel characteristic. So those are fun to find. And then some other shells. So I noticed this shell just has the rings going side to side. So I believe that word is concentric, but I feel like I always mess that up. So we can double check me. And that would be a classic characteristic of something like a butter clam, especially with this thick shell. That might clue that it's not some of the soft shells, the soft shell clams that are common on our Puget Sound beaches, but rather that nice thick calcareous shell of the butter clam. And then another, let's see, Let's look at that one. So this one has the concentric and the radial lines, which makes me think that it is something like a manila clam. Here's another little piece. So it's almost like you could just come to the beach and do a clam puzzle, which maybe that's not what you're into, but maybe it is. And I don't know. I think it could be kind of a fun detective investigation to just hang out in the upper tidal zone. You don't need a spectacularly low tide to still have a great day at the beach. You could just come play up here. But yeah, so different clam species have different shell types. Here's one more that I'll point out is these really thick radial lines. This is a piece of a heart cockle, and that is a clam that I just learned about at the Salish Sea Ecosystem Conference that happened, was that last week? I don't know. What is time? 2 weeks ago? Anyways, it recently happened, and this was a species that was particularly noticeable with our June heat wave that corresponded with a really low tide. And that's because this is one of those clams that doesn't always bury. It often lives more on the surface. And so getting stranded on a really hot day on a really low tide made for sad clams. Also wasn't great for the buried clams because many of those also perished. So interesting to kind of see some of the data coming out of what happened when we had an extreme heat event on an extreme low tide. Clams were not super happy unless they had nice, cool, seeping vents of water, freshwater vents. I don't know if that made sense. Anyways, little evidence of clams in our upper intertidal zone. Pretty cool. And again, it's not a super low tide today, so we're not seeing all the other typical creatures. This is a place where I would normally take you to go listen to the tube worms singing, as maybe I mentioned at the beginning of our broadcast. They are so funny, just the way they kind of creak and groan in the sand. But the tide's not low enough here at the Fox Island Sandspit to see them today, but definitely looking forward to doing that with our fabulous new crew of volunteers. So if you would like to get out on the beach and be a Harbor Wild Watch volunteer naturalist with us, there's still time. Tonight's our last virtual training, and then we will be getting together next Sunday on the 15th to do a beach walk here. So if that sounds like something you'd like to get into, shoot me an email at stina@harborwildwatch.org or pop online and register for that Zoom link so you can learn about chordates and human influences with us tonight. And of course, also on Thursday, I know Surfrider is doing their monthly chapter meeting, and so you can come learn about orcas, rain gardens, and you. So lots of cool things happening between the joint organizations who make Blue Water Task Force possible here. I think I'm gonna leave us on this this higher rack line, so I can kind of look across the beach and see this layer of seaweed that is left behind by the last high tide. And again, it has some of that crusty green algae. Looks like maybe even some crusty seagrass. Definitely know that across the spit, over on the other side, there are some fantastic seagrass meadows, which is another super important habitat for lots of creatures here in the Puget Sound, and is another one of those places that is kind of in trouble. So there's a lot of cool work being done to better understand those seagrass habitats and how we can help restore them, help keep them from disappearing, all of that kind of stuff. And yeah, it is just a gosh darn beautiful day here, folks. Light breeze, good for yard work, so I'm guessing you can hear a little bit of the mowers and blowers in the background. So we'll go ahead and call it good here. I'm gonna go off to collect some more samples at Titlow Beach Park and Les Davis, So if the time is right, maybe I'll say hi from those beaches too, and we can do a little beach comparison site. But I'm glad to see some folks out here running around, letting us know that indeed people do play at the beach year round. Although it is May and it's a beautiful day, so maybe that's a little less surprising today. If we were out here in January looking at the paddleboarders who launch from this spot, then we'd be like, yeah, that's the hardcore stuff we're making sure this water is doing well for. So I don't know if you can see the bridge in the background, but get your sense of place. That's the Fox Island Bridge, headed over to Fox Island. A nice looking eagle tree in the distance. And again, just super thankful to have you all tuning in. And oh, I guess quickly to reference Monica's question, wondering if anybody consumes the dry, crusty seaweed or if it just decomposes. I would guess there's a mix. It's kind of impressive how if we take some of this crusty seaweed, it rehydrates pretty easily. So if the tide gets back up to it, you can see holding onto rocks with that crustiness. Lovely, lovely. But when it gets wet again, it kind of can be tasty, I would imagine. So yeah, I would assume there's definitely, at all levels of decomposition, this algae is going to be a good snack for various algae eaters. Although if I was an algae eater, I think my preference might be for the attached fresh stuff, which of course as the summer goes on, you will see so much of the sea lettuce covering that mid-intertidal area on the beach. But yeah, there's our once crusty seaweed, now pretty rehydrated. It's only 2 cells thick and is pretty well adapted for this environment, so I wouldn't be surprised if it can keep photosynthesizing and regrow a little bit, although I don't totally know if this partial death means it's totally over. I don't know. I'm feeling hopeful for this algae, but again, more data. So with that, thanks again everybody for tuning in, and Monica, connect with us. Let's go on a beach walk and we'll address some more questions, because you got some good ones. I appreciate that. So with that, I'm gonna flip back around and wave you off, saying learn, have fun, go out, enjoy this beautiful day, because wow, it's amazing. And maybe we'll see you shortly from Les Davis Ortillo. All right, bye everybody.